Hey everybody, this is Giovanni Robles, and we will be talking about a couple of works, including Animal Crossing. Oh wait, no. It's called The Crossing by Viola and the Jowo Rinpoche. Which, let's be obvious, what in the heck are they? The work's name is The Crossing, which was created by Viola during 1996. A video and sound installation with its room dimensions being 16 by 27.5 by 57 feet. And our special guy doing this is Phil Esposito. Image number is 239. Viola grew up in Queens, New York, and attended Syracuse University in the late 1960s to learn about how to express his understanding of life itself using the video medium. As a child, he was a very, very shy and introverted person, just like me. His works are mainly inspired by a constant dialogue he has kept with himself ever since he was 12 years old. Now on to the actual work. The Crossing begins with a man walking towards us in extremely slow motion, until he pauses suddenly, and then on one of the 12-foot double screens, he suddenly begins searing up in flame. It is a room-sized installation that is included as a part of the scale to emphasize drama in the footage. On the alternate side, our man is splattered with a steady stream of water coming from above, which soon pummels down like a waterfall. And soon after time passes, the man vanishes out of thin air, just like that, in both screens. From the artist's experience, he had once fallen into a lake when he was 6 years old, which had become a revelation to his understanding of life, in which he felt there was more than just the surface. And so his concepts of meaning came from birth, death, and aspects of consciousness, making most of his works contribute to water. The significance of the crossing is to give insight to the idea of the cycle of purification and destruction, to justify the elemental forces of
fire, water,
symbolize change, redemption, transformation, and renewal, which are themes that reflect the studies of Viola based on spiritual traditions such as Catholicism, Hinduism, Buddhism, and Sufism, Yo, this guy was religious. We know this work was for public audiences because he wanted to innovate his ideas of the meaning of life as for us to look to into ourselves, to see birth and death as very important roles in life itself. Visual evidence of the work giving ideas of birth and death is the depiction of both figures, which are Phil Esposito, disappearing through slow motion. This gives the impression of what we will soon come across in our lives, as the use of slow motion invites a meditative and contemplative response from the audience to concentrate on their own awareness of detail, movement, and change within the recording. But now that I think about it, it would be quite unsettling to be in a dark room and see this. Bill Viola uses the video medium because of his interest in technological experimentation when he first discovered video for the first time in 1969. From this time, Viola felt a connection to this media because of his experience of falling into a lake, which he had first seen a blue screen. This became to be known as the medium he would use for his art. According to the use of elements in his footage, the fire and water may also be perceived to be a symbol of Shiva Nataraha, the god of the cycles of creation and destruction. In this context, the elemental forces of fire and water thus again symbolize change, redemption, transformation, and renewal. The next work we will talk about is the Jowo Rinpoche, which was dedicated to the Buddha Shakyamuni, or Gautama, in 641, and currently in the Jokhang Temple in Lhasa, Tibet, made of gilt metal with semi-precious stones, pearls, and paint. It is image number 184. The Jowo Rinpoche is a 1.5 meter tall statue with a gold hue in shocking blue hair, seated against a lustrous gold and jewel-encrusted throne. The Buddha statue depicts its enlightenment by being seated with its legs tucked onto his thighs in a lotus or padmasana position, while his left hand is in the gesture of meditation or dhyana mudra, and his right hand is in the gesture of calling the earth to witness, or bhumisparsha mudra. The entire work is a dynamic position within itself because as an idealistic figure, we can find that details in this work, such as the mudra signs, give the impression that the Buddha found enlightenment. Within the existence of the Jowo Rinpoche, it has been reconstructed and changed according to the Cultural Revolution, in which texts from the 7th century state that the statue was in a similar enlightenment state. A notable change to the statue is stated from an 11th century text called the Vase-Shaped Pillar Testament, which tells us that a wrathful deity is seen projected from the Buddha's neck, which is no longer there in present time. For what we know of the statue that is currently there, the Jowo Rinpoche's function is to serve as a proxy for the Buddha Gautama after departing from our world, after his parinirvana, or departure. The Buddha statue is believed to have such immense power, which is so said by believers who follow the Buddhist beliefs. Followers of Buddhism would then pray to the statue and hold their faith into it, especially since Rinpoche means the precious one. It was thus also believed that the statue was carved by the Hindu god Vishwakarma. Although it seems miraculous that the statue was carved by a god for the Buddha, claims of other statue appearances from celestial origins have also been made about works such as the Emerald Buddha in Thailand and the Saroryoji Buddha in Japan, which have almost identical stories of origin. It's probably fair to say that these people didn't know how to keep a secret. Regarding the religion that actually wants us to believe that these origins were accurate, our actual evidence tells us that the sculpture existed back in the 7th century when a Chinese princess, Wenqing Gongsu, had brought it to Tibet as a part of her marriage to the Emperor Songtsen Gampo in 641. This date therefore concurs with the foundation of the Buddhist religion in Tibet. We know this Buddha is from this time period because he wears a thin monk's robe to show his identity as a Buddha. The Buddha is also idealistic instead of realistic because the artist wants the Buddha to be a dramatic representation, although this is the most accurate representation we have of the Buddha. As a public work, it still has inspired Buddhism throughout Tibet by the continued veneration that the statue is the closest and most accurate representation of what we see as the Buddha Gautama. The lineage of Buddhism has been passed down, still giving to us the spiritual and cultural significance to the Buddha, although its stories may not be entirely true. To end my presentation, I would like to claim a great connection between these two works, which are an emphasis on enlightenment because the crossing intended for viewers to reflect on what the meaning of life may be, which plays a role in purification, symbolized with water coming from above. Enlightenment is thus a goal of the Buddha in Buddhism, whereas it is important for you to find the truth of life, to reach nirvana, and simply exist. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day, y'all!